Welcome to the next Idea Explosion Challenge competition live stream with me, Mike Monday. And today, once again, we have the wonderful Luke on my right shoulder. How are you, Luke?
Oh, I am doing great. Excited to keep on splurging.
Yes.
Excited to keep teaching people about the splurge. It's a fun time.
Absolutely. Because there's lots and lots of, there's literally infinite ways that you can add rules, bring in limitations, alter as long as you've got the four core rules, which is 0, focus on quality, 100% focus on speed, record or export every audio, and do not listen. As long as those four core rules remain, then there are infinite ways you can add other limitations and rules to the splurge in order to make different kinds of progress and learn different things. And that's what we're going to do today. Today is one of my favorite splurges because this area, as I will tell you about soon, has been an obsession of mine, literally an obsession of mine throughout my career. One of my biggest sources of frustration in my earlier career. In fact, it was one of the reasons I stopped making music for a while, which I'll tell you about in a bit. But also now one of the reasons that I literally cannot stop making music, which is about your unique style. I'm literally addicted to it. Anyway, so let's start with the positive focus. What's been your biggest win since starting the challenge? What has been your biggest win since starting the challenge? What's been your biggest win since starting the challenge, Luke?
I think I started splurging in Studio One, and you can enter in notes instead of little blocks. And I think using notes as opposed to MIDI blocks is really playing on my strengths.
Oh, great. I'm not quite sure what you mean, but it's okay. You don't have to explain it. But yeah, I'm going to ask you about that later. So it sounds good. But yeah, brilliant. All right. So let's have a look at some of these. You read some of these out, Luke.
Let's see. 021 got out of a 2-month-long writer's block.
Excellent. So 021, about that. There is no such thing. I know what you mean. Do you know how I know what you mean? Because I used to say that I had a 2-year-long period of writer's block. But I then realized that it wasn't that. What is writer's block? Do you have a literal block in your mind? No, of course you don't. There isn't like a massive piece of concrete in the center of your brain stopping you from doing something. Another thing that I realized was, do plumbers get plumber's block? Do firemen get fireman's block? Do taxi drivers get taxi driver's block? So why is it all right for creators to get writer's block? Why is that okay? Why does that make sense? Yeah, is there some kind of thing? No. At the end of the day, what it is, and by the way, Otawan, I had this too, and I had this belief as well. So you've done nothing wrong, and you're not, ridiculous or foolish or anything. It's like, but we are. It's almost like we allow ourselves to have writer's block by thinking that there is this thing stopping us. But there isn't, because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. There isn't anything stopping us as long as we remove the thing that we're afraid of. And what is it we're afraid of? What is it we're afraid of, Luke?
Writing something that's not good.
Writing something that's not good. So what the splurge is, amongst many, many other things, is the cure for the disease that doesn't exist. What the splurge is the cure for the disease that doesn't exist, which is writer's block. Okay? So, let's keep going.
Alrighty. Ben Cubica is coming up with so many new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. Elliot's son is having a lot of fun making music again.
Fantastic.
Earth Tribe Percussion is getting organized in their flow.
That's not okay. That's a really interesting way of putting it. Is flow organized? Is that how you would characterize flow? What do you think, Luke?
That's a great question. It could be, but it would seem that during...
Oh, I think we might have lost Luke, or is it me? Oh, Luke's... Oh, no, he's back. Hello. Yeah, you went during... I don't think you actually did that, did you? It was the internet. Or maybe you did, I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so what were you about to say?
I think it could be organized, but it could also... There could be some benefits in not being organized and letting whatever happens happen.
So I think there may well be some level of organization which is beneficial for allowing flow to happen. That may well be the case, and maybe that's what Earth Tribe Percussion is referring to. But I personally wouldn't call organization an integral part of flow itself. I mean, it's almost like saying, I can't actually think of it, but it's almost like it's neither disorganized or organized. That's the point. It's outside of organization or non-organization. It just is. Yeah, because I don't know, is the universe organized? I don't think it is. I mean, I know it's like we try to organize it, but it's like essentially very chaotic. And what I think flow is the acceptance of that fact and going with the flow. Yeah. And so sometimes, I mean, the reason I'm picking up on this and spending some time on it is I think in order to unlock it, is sort of allow flow to happen, it can't, you can't be having to figure out how to make a sound come out. So that level of organization is required. Yeah. You need to be able to make a sound, but then in the actual flow, it's not about organization or non-organization. And the obsession with, I mean, I'm not saying you have this, by the way, Earth Tribe Percussion, but often people will just put organization so highly that they never get into flow. So it can be a barrier to flow as well. So just recognize that, it's almost like that music production admin stuff takes over. And and it starts becoming an excuse. Yeah. So that's why I picked up on that. So let's keep going. A few more.
Okay, let's see. Drakendor is letting go of overthinking when creating. Let's see. That's good. Maria is making more music than I ever have in a 5-day period.
Wow.
In all caps. Screaming it to the mountains. Let's see. Son of a...
Except for the P, which it says period.
That's great. Steven, realizing how good it is not to listen, no judgments to dwell on.
Absolutely. Wonderful, Steven.
Let's see. Tom Golding is making writing each part less scary and mystical. You just do it.
Exactly. This is so good to read. I don't know why I said remove.
Safe Nave. I've moved out of a genre I've been stuck in for some time.
Okay, brilliant. We're going to be talking about genres today.
Let's see. That kid courageous fell back in love with making beats.
Absolutely wonderful.
Excellent. Let's see. Aria Divinity is creating without a standard in mind. Wonderful. Coastals got back into the habit of splurging. What's up, Ivan? That's good to hear. Javisco, judging myself less. Fantastic.
One thing about that, remember, your music isn't you. Your music isn't you. What's the problem with thinking your music is you? And again, Javisco, I'm not saying that you think your music is you, but some people might. Yeah. So what is the problem with thinking your music is you, Luke?
Well, one, it's not, so you don't have an accurate representation, which
Mm-hmm.
can lead to a lot of weird thoughts. And two, if you think your music is you, you end up constraining it because instead of seeing it as a separate entity, you bring all these judgments and bring all these non-existent expectations into what the music is and what it can do, and it prevents you from learning. Because if it's you, you can't look at it as what it is.
Yeah.
And
Go
you're
on.
so afraid of what people are going to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge thing, is that if you view your music as an extension of yourself, then it's going to be very hard to put it out into the world and for it to be, it's almost like you'll take every single criticism, of which there will be many. The more successful you get, the more criticism there will be. It's a sign of success, the more you get criticized. Okay. I know this for a fact as I've grown this business. so yeah, you'll find it hard to put anything out. Yeah, you'll start kind of obsessing about about criticism. What your music is what happens when you express yourself. It's almost like what comes out of the end of the process of expressing yourself. That doesn't mean it's you. Yeah, it's just a result of expressing yourself. Okay, so that's really, really important. Okay, fantastic. Let's keep moving on. How do I get rid of that? Okay, brilliant. So, hit like if you've been getting value from this challenge so far, and let's talk about the style splurge, which we are doing today. And one of the reasons I picked up on that difference between music being you and it not being you, and it just being what happens when you express yourself, is because sometimes when I talk about these things, people will make that mistake. Yeah, they will think that I'm saying your music is you. It is not. Yeah, it is what happens when you express yourself. But you do need to, in order to develop your own style, it needs to express who you are and who you've been. Okay, but that still doesn't mean that your music is you. Okay, so today you're going to discover why becoming unique is a simpler route to success than becoming the best. Yeah, and how an ongoing splurge practice allows you to create your own unique style. And let's not forget, you could also win a Moog like this. It was back in the days when your beard was much, much shorter. I was going to say something else to this. By the way, everybody, if you're wondering about these beard jokes that I keep doing with Luke, I think I really think Luke's beard is great, and I've got nothing against his beard. It's just a bit of fun. So
it's a talking point, and every person I talk to, no matter who they are, it enters the conversation somehow.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm going to be making some extra videos in the coming week, probably the coming couple of weeks, addressing some of the questions that I'm seeing come up. So make sure you hit subscribe and remind to this channel to make sure you don't miss them. Okay. Something slightly confusing is the Zentor stuff, the stuff where I'm playing. That's actually on a different channel. So there are actually two channels to subscribe and remind to. Okay. So this is the Make Music Your Life channel we're on right now. And the one I play music on is a separate one because people, a lot of people just are here to get helped rather than listen to me make music. Okay, so that's why I've separated the two things to honor what people signed up for. Anyway, so the three reasons I stopped making and playing music in 2011. So what, if you're probably not aware, you may well be, I don't know. I started making music, well, actually started making music before that, but professionally, in other words, putting it out on vinyl back then. I started making music in 1994, and I then, apart from a 6-month break when I worked in a coffee shop, apart from a 6-month break, I worked full-time as a music producer and then DJ all the way through to 2011. In 2011, I stopped making music, sold all my equipment, except for my decks, weirdly enough. I don't know why that was, but anyway, stopped making music and focused on coaching from 2011 to 2018. Okay. And there were three reasons I stopped making music in 2011. It was one of the hardest things that I ever did, actually, stopping making music. But it was also a massive relief. Okay, because I was really struggling, to be honest. So the first reason, and by the way, when I stopped making music, I thought I was done. I was literally, and I was happy with it. I absolutely adore coaching and helping people. It's like one of the joys of my life. And coming back to it, no one was more surprised than me. I was like, oh, all of a sudden, I'm doing it and I love it. So now I've got these two things that I love. Oh, and also there's another 5 things through there, being my wife and 4 kids. And of course, there's another thing in front of my face right now, who's Luke, who I love as well. So there's lots of things I love, but in terms of what I do, just, music and coaching now, are very much in my heart. But anyway, back then in 2011, I was done, okay, for 3 main reasons. First, while I made and released a lot of music, the process was extremely stressful. I suffered through it, okay? And the reason for this was that because I used the finish everything you start by beating music into submission method, which is the method a lot of people use. Finish everything you start by beating music into submission. And I hadn't figured out what I now know from coaching, which is the automatic music machine, which is you don't have to finish everything you start. In fact, you start a lot that you don't finish. The majority of stuff that you start, you don't finish because you don't have to, because we have the automatic music machine, which allows us to you can finish music that's difficult. In fact, I encourage that sometimes, but you can also, some people only finish the music that's easy to finish, and that's fine too. Okay. So you've got multiple options. Okay. So that was the first reason. It was, I did finish a lot of music. I released, I don't exactly know how much, because a lot of it was on vinyl, so it's all kind of lost in history. But I don't know, about 300 releases or something. And I finished probably about 1,000 pieces of music. Not all of them were released. Okay. So that was the first reason. It was just really hard. It was really hard, basically. Number 2, I didn't know how to make a living from music without touring endlessly. Okay. Because when I started in the music industry, 1994, that was a high watermark, really, of recordings as being a profit center. And then over the course of my career, that just completely got destroyed by the internet. So the business model flipped from where the scalable item means you make it once and then you can sell it multiple times. Well, it means more than that, but let's just say that. In other words, the recordings, they were the main profit center. And the extra thing was the touring, okay? And the touring promoted the non-scalable item. Non-scalable means I have to be there. I can't, it's not infinitely scalable. It's dependent on me being present at a particular time in a particular place. That was the thing that promoted the scalable item. That's a sustainable business model. Yeah, because the non-scalable item is promoting the scalable item. What happened over the course of my career is it flipped. And the recordings started promoting the touring. The scalable item started promoting the non-scalable item. The profit center was in the non-scalable item all of a sudden. That's unsustainable. People do sustain it, but it is very unhealthy and very difficult. It's a really, really tricky time. The only way really through it is by earning absolutely loads from every gig. And even then, it's like golden handcuffs. Okay, it's better to have golden handcuffs than bronze, obviously, or steel, but it's tough. So I didn't know how to make a living from music without touring endlessly. And the reason for that was because I hadn't built a successful online business and realized that the principles are the same for music as they are for coaching or anything else. Okay, so that problem has been solved as well. Okay, now, but it wasn't back then. But number 3, and the one that's relevant for today, is I never developed my own unique style. Despite being obsessed about this during the last 6 years of my previous career, I never got there. I just ended up making a lot of music that was all very different. Okay. And the reason for that, the reason I never managed to do it, despite being absolutely obsessed with it, Yeah, because either the music I made sounded like something else, or it just sounded like not something else, but there was no kind of cohesiveness to it. Okay. And the reason that I wasn't able to do that previously was because I hadn't developed splurging. And I think the reason I came back to making music in 2018 was that all three of these problems were solved. I knew what I needed to do. And all of a sudden, that just went poof. And I was like, I've got to do this again. Right? And how did that happen? Through coaching thousands of people. Okay? Now I have a style which it's nowhere near where I want it to be. Okay? And it never will be. Okay? And I wouldn't say it's completely unique. It's probably not unique enough, but it is definitely cohesive. Yeah. And I'm constantly focused on making it more unique. Okay. So it's not there yet, but even without vocals, because often if you're a songwriter and you sing, then obviously your voice is it's kind of easier to have a unique style because you've got your voice. Yeah, but even with instrumental music, it's harder. Okay, but even without vocals, there's no doubt who it is when you hear Zentor. Would you say that's true, Luke?
Oh yeah, I mean, just hearing that little snippet you played me earlier, it's oh wow, that's definitely Zentor.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason how that has come about is from splurging. Okay, and Zentor playing afterwards as usual, the after party. And there's a link in the description. Okay? So, what we're doing today on the call, we're going to review what you've done so far, of course, help you overcome the problems you faced. I'm going to step-by-step demo the new Splurge, go through the rules and Splurge as I go. Okay? And also Q&A throughout. One thing I've just remembered, actually, that we didn't do last time, is we didn't actually listen to Luke's terrible Splurges, did we?
We didn't.
Okay. Should we do that now? Yeah, let's do that right now. Okay, because we didn't do it last time, and I remembered all of a sudden when I was preparing for this one. Okay, let's have a look. Let's see if I can find them. Piano test. That sounds like one of yours, doesn't it, Luke?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go move over to this screen. Let's have Luke's face nice and big so we can watch him cringe. Is that it?
That's it.
That's awesome. Well done, Luke.
Took a long time.
Took
a long time.
Yeah, pat on the back for that one. Okay.
I was in Europe, and I was looking out at the countryside, and I just thought, how can I express this in music?
Oh my gosh. What were you looking at? Like, I don't know, a mine or something, an abandoned mine. Okay, let's this one. April the 17th. Let's find out if April the 17th was a good day. What? So someone's got to put that cello player out of their misery. It sounds like they ate something terrible.
I don't know. I got a new plugin, and there was I was using that Rolly thing, and when I recorded it, it sounded like it was in key, but then it was just when it exported. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. All right, one more, and then we'll move on to much more serious matters.
Wait, this one might not be bad.
This one sounds quite good. This one's good.
Yeah, this one's not terrible.
So, once again, we have another clear example of not knowing what's good or bad with that last one, because actually that's great. I mean, that's something you could take forward. And obviously, when you were listening, for some random reason, you thought that was a terrible one. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that, objectively speaking, the first two were bloody awful. Like, I think maybe we found the one time that I can say with confidence that our opinion is correct. I don't know, maybe not though.
Yeah, I have no idea how I got that cello to sound so off. I couldn't do it again. I couldn't make something that bad.
It was like the cello player was having some serious, I don't know, bowel issue or something. Anyway, so just to remind you, the next session, same time on the 20th of April, if you're in the UK, Europe. I have to say the UK and Europe now, don't I? Anyway, so UK, Europe, America, Canada, 20th of April. If you're down under, New Zealand, this side of Asia, then 21st of April, we're going to find out the so secret the world tells you it's wrong method, which, funnily enough, literally every successful artist I know uses to discover where the biggest breakthroughs are in your music making. It's really insane how constantly, top artists will tell you how they've done something, and then everybody just chooses to ignore this one thing. It's strange. It's just really strange. And as a coach who is teaching this kind of stuff, people argue with me about it. I'm like, but what about this person and that person and that person and that person? They go, no, that's talent. I'm like, okay, but what about this other thing that you're not doing? Yeah. So, and also what we're going to find out is how ignoring most people and often your own thoughts to double down on your splurge practice will deliver results your friends will shake their heads in wonder at. So, remember to hit subscribe and click the remind bell to get notified when that happens. So, first let's review. What's been your biggest frustration so far with your splurging? What's been your biggest frustration so far with splurging? My biggest frustration. What's your biggest frustration with splurging? Like, do you have a biggest frustration? You must be something that's frustrating about it.
My biggest frustration with splurging. Maybe sometimes when I get back and I can't. With the actual splurging, that I can't always go as quickly as I would like, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many.
My biggest frustration with splurging is when I'm not splurging. In other words, I'm supposed to be splurging and then I stop. And then I find myself doing something which isn't splurging. That still happens. But the good thing is that it happens, me being aware of that happens quicker and quicker. So that's good. And it's funny because, now my entire music making process is kind of splurging, but it's weird because I'm doing so much of it live with people actually watching. It is kind of splurging, but it's kind of not splurging because I am focused on quality. I have to be focused on quality. I suppose I don't have to be, but it's almost like I'm very aware of it. And it's about actually disengaging from that quality judgment while also trying to maintain a quality. I know that sounds very, very unusual and strange, but when you get to do this for a while, you notice there is a difference between having a quality judgment, which you can pay attention to, and it's stopping you because you literally, when you're doing it live, you've got no choice. You've got no choice. You just got to keep going. So let's read some of these. So time management, Jeb says. So you can't manage time. Time just passes, whatever you do. All you can do is manage yourself. So probably what you mean, Jeb, is self-management, I would think, in relation to time. So it depends how this is showing up for you, Jeb, but really with if time management means I'm not finding the time to actually make music, then or time to splurge, bear in mind, I mean, if we cast our minds back, and I don't mean to remind you of an unpleasant experience, but if we just cast our minds back to Luke's first splurge, then that can't have taken him very long. I mean, at least I hope not. So, how long did that take?
Oh well, it was 1995. Probably 4 or 5 months of consistent work.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it must have taken like what, 5 minutes?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need an enormous amount of self-management just to splurge. Yeah. So that's something to bear in mind. Javisco says, I forget to eat and drink. Well, that's important. It's a good sign in terms of the splurging, though. I still have issues writing melodies. I tend to go into editor mode. Okay, so Otto, when you go into editor mode, the point is it's okay if you go into editor mode. It's okay because it depends on what you do next. If you just keep on with editor mode, and all you need to do is stop and export the thing. Yeah, remember one of the reasons that this splurge is done is because you stopped splurging. Yeah, so you don't need, just as soon as you become aware of it, stop, export, and save, and then you're done. That's the easiest fix to this. Gorley says, surprisingly none. The initial idea creation process has always been my favorite part of the process. So Gorley, you will notice that both me and Luke actually have answered this question. What's been your biggest frustration so far? It doesn't say what's been your frustration so far. It's your biggest frustration. So there is going to be something that's been more frustrating than other things. Yeah. So, and that holds some information for you. That holds some way that you can improve. So there will be something that has been frustrating. Yeah. And I'm asking you to look at it so that you can improve. Yeah. I mean, it's good that you're enjoying the process and everything else, but try and think about, well, okay, so if there was something that was slightly frustrating, what was it? Because there will be something. Okay. Again, over here, we don't pretend that problems don't exist. Yeah, I'm not directing this at you, Gorley. But yeah, we're not pretending that problems don't exist. Yeah. I used to call problems challenges. I mean, I still use the word challenges, but I use that in relation to actual challenges. And I'll call problems problems because problems aren't a problem. Yeah. DG, making sure I don't stop to make things nice. Great. Well, again, same as Otto. When you notice, you will do that. Yeah. But when you notice yourself doing that, that's when your splurge is done. Okay. Murafly, I find it hard to go fast too. Okay. Luke, why don't you speak to this one?
I find it hard to go fast. Mm-hmm. I think if you're finding it hard to go fast, you might be too worried about whether or not it's good. And you might want to practice really making some bad things just to get the feeling of speed and being okay with making something bad. Because if you're finding it hard to go fast, like if you have the ability to go fast, you just might not have the ability to go fast and make something that you view to be great in the moment, right? And the more you're able to let go of the need for quality, the more you're able to go fast, right? And this may seem counterintuitive at first, but it is a practice. And the more you go fast, the more you'll be able to go fast. The same way, if you practice piano, the more you practice piano, the better at piano you will get.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yeah, and the other thing is, it depends what you mean by fast. As long as you're going faster than you were before. Yeah. I mean, it's about, one of the things is that going fast, it uses a different bunch of muscles, both muscles and also muscles up here. I think the direction to go slowly and then build up, from slow to fast, often doesn't work because it just uses a different kind of thinking process, a different set of muscles in your body, just an entirely different approach. Yeah. So letting go of quality will mean you'll start to practice, and it's kind of a weird feeling, but almost automatically you'll be making better music much faster. Hamza, finding my identity in music. Okay, so this is very much what we were talking about earlier. You might not have been on earlier, where I was saying your music isn't you. You won't find your identity in music. Yeah? You'll find your identity within yourself. And then it's about expressing yourself, and then some of your identity sort of being displayed in that music. That doesn't mean your identity is in the music. It just means the music is what happens when you express yourself. So don't worry about finding your identity in music. Okay, and we're going to talk more about that today. Al, not sure if I'm doing enough, doing it right. Luke, why don't you speak to this one?
Not sure if I'm doing enough or doing it right. Did you hear my piano splurge? The thing is you'll hear that and you'll say, oh, well, I didn't do that right, but I did do that right. And there's a lot of little splurges like that. And what you're learning to listen for is the potential of an idea at the end of it. And so you'll come to find that some of these great melodies, there's a lot of composers, producers that talk about it's not as though you will it into being. It's kind of like it already exists and you discover it. And the way to discover more of these is to just write more of them. And sometimes a little thing like that will have something within it that you can take forward. So if you're worried that you're not doing it right, you're probably doing it right. Because it really is just about making something, anything. And sometimes it's terrible, and sometimes you get done and you just don't even know how it happened because it's just everything clicked. It's really about it's just about letting yourself create without putting the brakes on during the creation process. It's having your foot on the gas pedal and not braking, versus what most people do is put it on the gas and put it on the brakes, so you're just stuck, right?
Absolutely. And let me just go through a few minutes. All right, yes, this one. That Kid Courageous getting out of the 4-bar loop rut. Have you watched the instructions on the last splurges? Basically, you just make one part, then you make the next part, then you make the next part, then you make the next part, and then you visually arrange them. There is no 4-bar loop rut. What you can actually do is arrange them on the screen as you're writing them. So you go, if you're doing 4-bar loops, I might recommend actually doing 8, just because you'll get less loopy. But anyway, so you arrange the first 8 bars or 4 bars if you want on the screen. So you do your first part, and then you copy it over, and then you do the next one in the next 8 bars, right? So, and then you copy those 2 over, and then you do the next part and the next 8 bars. So you're never in a loop. How about that? That courageous? Then you'll never be in that loop. That thing, by the way, which I am very familiar with, I've named loopitis. And it's very familiar, but you can actually totally avoid it by what I've just told you. Dyke, combining ideas. Luke, why don't you speak to this one?
Combining ideas. That's interesting. I'm curious if he means during the splurge, or if he means after the splurge, combining ideas.
What I think, yeah, I mean, what I think it might mean is that he finds that Dyke he finds it difficult to. It sounds to me like there's quality going on there. To be honest, that it must be. It can only be that, because
because
if these ideas aren't combining well, I can't combine these ideas. They don't sound good. That's a focus on quality.
Yeah, part of it is just actually going about combining the idea there and just let it and doing it and then coming back to it later. There's this hit song that was made, and the producers, I think it was Outkast's producers, they got a call on the phone, and there were 4 producers in the room. One of them got the call, and 3 of them were working on new machines, a sampler, a keyboard, and like a synth. And he got the call, and they all had headphones on. He said, "Hey, what are you working on the drum machine?" So he unplugs the headphones. He's like, "Oh, that's cool. What are you working on?" Unplugs the headphones. "Oh, that's cool." Unplugs the headphones. "Oh, what are you working on?" "Oh, that's cool." And just combined them all right there, sent him the beat, and it became a #1 track. So you have to be willing to combine the ideas without knowing if it's going to work. And just like in that scenario, they didn't know if it was going to work. They just combined them. And they weren't worried about quality because who cares at that moment. But a lot of people can't do that, right? Like you've got to be willing to just let it go and come into it with an experimental mindset where when a scientist goes into a lab, they form a hypothesis. And if they get the wrong answer, it's still valuable to the scientists if they're doing science correctly. If they get what they weren't expecting, it's still valuable. It's a piece of information.
Exactly. There is no such thing as a failed experiment as long as the experiment has been run. Yeah. And that's what we're doing here. Okay. Let's go through some of these quickly now. So DJ Drew, incomplete starting template. All you need are the 5 players. If you've got an incomplete starting template, then just choose your 5 players. And that's it. It's no longer incomplete, it's complete. If you're saying that means it's incomplete, 5 isn't enough, then follow the directions and do the thing, because it is enough. Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be enough forever, but for splurging, it's enough. Okay? Because if you're saying that, if that's what you mean by incomplete starting template, I have the 5 players and it's not enough, then you're not understanding what splurging is. Okay, and you need to kind of unpick that. But it depends what you mean. If you haven't got your 5 players, then just choose one. Laker, I find myself compelled to play with effects and fiddle with the mixing. When people say that, what that usually means is it's like a kind of advanced form of procrastination. Yeah. Just when you notice yourself doing that, walk away from the computer or whatever it is you're using. Yeah. Stand up and walk away from the computer. Yeah. Count to 10, come back and hit export or bounce and save. That's it. Okay. That's your new process, Laker. And start another one. In that time, you would be fiddling with all that stuff. Jacinta, worrying that music making isn't for me because it's all been bad. Luke, why don't you take this one?
How do you know it's been bad if you haven't listened to it yet? First off.
And also remember, Jacinta is just starting out. I think Jacinta, I remember, is a beginner.
Yeah, I mean, it is a practice and it's something you get better at. 2, at this point, if you've done the practice, there's not a bad that can happen as far as what we're doing. If you are actually splurging, you're doing well, because what starts to happen if you are a beginner is the more you do this, the more you start to pick out the gems within the quote unquote bad, the thing that isn't great. Like I could take that piano splurge and I could hear a melody in there and I could develop it. And that's what you're learning to do, is hear the gold.
Oh, we've lost Luke again. Yeah. So what? Oh, he's back. There we go. Yeah, go on. Finish. Hear the gold.
hear the gold within what you may deem as bad. And as I said, if you haven't listened yet, then you don't know yet if it's bad.
Yes.
So let's pause on that.
Yeah. So Jacinta, there's obviously a belief there about talent, and it sounds like there's something of fixed mindset going on there. You know, when you came out of your mother's womb, could you walk? You couldn't. You could only just eat. Yeah. You probably found it hard to sleep as well. Okay. You definitely couldn't talk. Yeah. So what we are now is not what we can be. Yeah. Contrary to a lot of beliefs out there, this natural talent idea, a lot of it is about how much you practice. Yeah. So like being a beginner, if you were to say that about absolutely everything, what would have happened is earlier on in your life, you did lots of things a lot of times, which meant that you've become better at them. And people, because they don't remember them being a child and all of the things they did as a child, think that this is some kind of talent thing. Yet there are definitely differences in our brains that means we tend to be better at other things. But none of that is as important as what you actually do. So if you really want to do this, how good you are now is not a signal as to whether it's for you or not. Yeah, that's a fixed mindset talking. Read the book by Carol Dweck called Mindset. And that will be very helpful to you. Maria, not knowing what it really sounds like because we can't listen. So what it really sounds like, that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah, what it really sounds like. We don't ever know what it really sounds like, okay? Because what it really sounds like changes all the time. Our opinion changes all the time. Music sounds differently in different contexts. When you hear it on your own, it'll sound differently when you play it to other people. Okay, so what it really sounds like means there's probably a belief about there being a access to knowing what it really sounds like. So question that. And number two, because we can't listen, just trust me, Maria, it's going to be worth it. Okay. Final one. Ricardo, trying to figure out how any of the ideas are going to make it into a track. Why do you need to do that? You don't need to do that right now. That can come later. Okay, let's take the first step before taking the 10th step. Right, brilliant. What is this problem suggesting that you change about your process, about how you're approaching the splurge? What is this problem suggesting you change about your process? What is this problem that you're having suggest you change about your process or what you're doing? Any ideas in the chat? Andy, you're going.
Yeah, Andy says sort the signal path. Colin Michael Roberts, clear my head. Don't listen critically. Just get something down. Relax. Have a beer. Tino, my music seems to want to be too complicated. Oh, yeah.
I know that one. Just finish earlier. Stop earlier. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like when you're going really fast, you can't be complicated. And when you stop early, you can't be complicated.
Let's see. Tom says, tweak how fast I put the parts in. I feel like I want to be more considerate about it, even in the 30 minutes.
I reckon that might be you're going in the wrong direction, Tom. If you're saying you want to spend more time, you want to be less considered. Yeah, trust me on that. Because if you hadn't listened, you don't know how good the music is yet. So just like if you're saying I need to be more considered, No, you don't. You need to be less considered at this point. Trust me. Just do it. Okay, keep going.
Let's see. Oh, I got lost in there. Javisco, quit over listening and start creating. Roll the dice.
Yep.
Jose, being even quicker with my splurges. Ben, I think I need to let go more. It was hard to avoid hoping for a particular sound when I went to randomize a parameter.
Well, you don't need to.
Hope for this.
You don't need to. So Ben, you don't need to avoid hoping. You can hope, and that's fine. Hope's okay, but the hope can be there. It's just what you want to do is when that doesn't happen, not worry about it. So what actually you're avoiding is not so much avoiding the disappointment, but letting that have an impact on you. You can have all of these feelings and not act upon them. Yeah, not that they don't need to have an impact on you. I feel hope, disappointment, fear, frustration, anxiety, overwhelm, confusion, love, hate. All of these. I feel all of these things, and I don't have to. They don't have to have a massive impact on me. I mean, they have an impact on me, but they don't have to have an impact on what I do next. I can choose to do something different. Okay, let's keep going. So, here we go. Let's get rid of that comment there. So, let's talk about unique music. In the modern music industry, why does your music need to be unique? Let's think about that. In the modern music industry, why does your music need to be unique? Post in the chat. Oh, hang on a minute. How did that happen? I didn't touch anything. There we go. In the modern music industry, why does your music need to be unique? Luke, why do you think in the modern music industry your music needs to be unique? Just choose one of the reasons. There's lots of different reasons, actually, but... Oh, hang on. Let's start reading out the comments. There's some comments coming through now. Here we go. Austin, if not, you get lost in a sea of clones. That's right. So you stand out. Band reject to stand out. Into ashes, oversaturated. Yes. Fusion, the market is flooded. Yeah. You need to stand out. The volume out of other music in there. The barrier of entry to is lower. Plenty of same. Exactly. Okay. Not only that, though. Oh dear, I've lost it. There we go. What's going on here? Now I can't move the thing. Seem to have stuck. My slides seem to have stuck. Oh no. There we go. Oh my God, what's going on? Seem to have an issue with my keynote. Hang on. It's not just about the other same old. Yeah, which is definitely a huge part of it. There are legions and legions of music producers coming online all the time. More and more as it gets easier and easier and cheaper. I mean, it can't get much cheaper because it's pretty much free now to start making music. But when the world's best in any genre is one click away, why would anyone listen to your music? One of the kind of metaphors, if you like, I think about when thinking about this is that people have an incumbent artist that fulfills a particular function in their music listening. When they feel a certain way, I'm going to listen to this. When I want this, I'm going to listen to that. They have an incumbent artist. And anything that is incumbent, an incumbent president or an incumbent this or an incumbent that, has an advantage, because switching costs are a risk. Okay, so it's not just that you have to be as good as the world's best for that incumbent artist. You need to be better. Yeah. So are you going to become better than the world's best at what they do? Seriously? think about your favorite artists. Are you going to become better at them than what they already do? Am I going to become a better floating points than floating points? Given that floating points is approaching genius levels of musicianship, I doubt it. Okay. So here's my number one marketing tactic. Okay. Music marketing, this is. Become so good they can't ignore you. Okay. So I am talking about becoming good. I'm looking to become so good they can't ignore you. And I'm looking for you to become so good they can't ignore you. But this doesn't mean become better than the world's best at what they do. Yeah, it means become the world's best by becoming different to the world's best, by becoming unique. Yeah, because if you try to make music that sounds like your favorite artist, you are playing on their field. You're playing on the same playing field as them. Yeah. So to get further quicker and have more fun and be more authentic and make a greater contribution to music itself, create your own playing field and play your own game. You've got to make unique music. Develop your own style. Okay? So, what is it that makes music unique? What is it that makes music unique? Type in the chat what you think it is that makes music unique. I've thought about this so much. I mean, I've created a course. I've created courses about it. I've done it myself. It's literally been an obsession of mine for years. What makes music unique? Type in the chat. Okay. So Jeb says dissonance. So I think, Jeb, you're mistaking unique for weird, which is a very common error. Unique doesn't mean weird. You can have unique pop music. Yeah, pop music doesn't tend to be, well, it depends what kind of pop, obviously, but you could have like massively commercial, but extremely unique music. Yeah, so I would say that is not the definition of unique. Yeah, unique isn't weird. You can have music that actually appeals to a large group of people, but which is on its own. Yeah. For instance, I would say that Prince was unique. Yeah.
I think about the Gorillas.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Javisco, the background, the message, and the shape. Personality. What does that actually mean, though, in relation to music? Jusso, Lukanen, timbre of sounds. Timbre of sounds. Timbre. Kayuna, the person who creates it. Well, yeah, obviously. But, that's like saying, what makes music? A human being. There's not much information in that answer. But yeah, like what is it in the music that makes it unique? You can't. The problem is with that answer is that you're in danger of thinking, well, the fact that I made it means that it's unique. This isn't exactly the same as something, as something else. Therefore, it's unique. But that's not what we mean. We're making unique a higher standard, if you like. Yeah, because with that definition, all of that music that's the same old that everybody's been talking about, that we all hear, that all of it is unique, and that's not what we're talking about. I mean, there is an element of truth to it, but that's not what we're talking about. David, personal history, brilliant. Yes, if you can express some of your personal history in it, then absolutely. Fusion breaks, the style. That's kind of like saying unique music makes unique makes music unique. Yep. So, yeah. Yes, sounds different to other stuff is also a similar answer. Unique music makes music unique. Yeah. What makes it sound different to other stuff? Okay, so let's actually find out, because we're going to discover the answer by asking another question. And the question is this: what made Daft Punk? Okay, I'm going to get you to do something now. Now, Daft Punk, love them or hate them. Some people can't stand them. Some people love them. Daft Punk, whether you like them or not, definitely they had a sound. You knew it was Daft Punk when you heard Daft Punk. And obviously they've recently split up. But for me, they were a very important band in my life, because back in 1994, early 90s, they changed the face of the kind of dance music, electronic music back then. And they had a massive influence on me. We were actually being courted by Daft Punk's label, Virgin Records. It was in the first band that I was in, called Beat Foundation. And they were on Virgin Records at the time, and we were being they were just a very, very big band in my life. And love them or hate them, they definitely had a sound. So what I want you to do right now is open up your music streaming app of choice. Okay, whether that be Spotify, Apple Music, or something else like that, and do a search for Daft Punk Homework. Daft Punk Homework, okay? Now, this was their first album, and for me as a musician, one of my top 10 albums. It might not be one of my top 10 albums as a listener, but for me as a musician, it definitely is one of my top 10 albums, right? So Daft Punk Homework, okay? And what I want you to do, so is everybody keeping up? Has everybody got their music app open? And have you found the album Daft Punk Homework? Just going to make sure that people are doing this. Okay, fantastic. What I want you to do is skip listen. So it's literally like listen to the track. So listen to the first track sort of through it, just a few bits, yeah. And you don't need to listen to the whole album, just maybe listen to the first 6 tracks or something. But it's literally like listen to a bit of the first track, maybe 3 sections of each track. I'm just going to give you three minutes on this, yeah. And what I want you to do is make a list of the musical elements that make this album sound like Daft Punk, and make it sound like it does, okay? I'm going to give you 3 minutes, okay? Starting now. So have a listen, just skip listen through. actually make a list of what the musical elements are, just on a piece of paper or a doc somewhere. We're going to go through them together. Okay, you can start posting in the chat some of the things that you're hearing, and I'll start writing them down. Okay, so we've got vocoders, 909, beats, filter, disco loops, funk, punchy compression, 4/4, side chaining, disco, filter sweeps, atmospheric, background noise, use of filters, repeating samples. And by the way, I saw somebody say a sigh about Daft Punk, and if that's because you can't stand Daft Punk, just recognize. So I went to university to study music, and if you only learn from the things you like, then you're missing like about 75% of what you can learn. Okay, so I listen to a lot of music that I really cannot stand. Yeah, and I know it's good. Yeah, so there's a difference between what you like and what's good. Okay, so it's really important that you start to kind of disengage from this, lycometer. Yeah. Anyway, screaming synths. Guitar. Okay, brilliant. We've got a bunch of stuff there. Saturation. Just see if I can find some more. Okay. Right then. Now let's move back to. Yeah, we've done that. Now find random access memories. Random access memories. Daft Punk random access memories. Garrett says, if you can't stand Daft Punk, your taste is objectively wrong. Yes, obviously it isn't. Like, I can understand people not liking Daft Punk, completely understand it. So Random Access Memories was their last album, okay, which I didn't actually like very much at first, but which I now realize is absolutely brilliant. Okay, and there's a particular reasons why I didn't like it at first as a fan, but now I actually realize it's great. Okay, so what I want you to do is skip listen through, and again, just make a list of the elements that make this album sound like Daft Punk. Okay. So I want you to do the same thing again with random access memories. Go. So we've got disco funk guitar by Nile Rodgers, vocoders, synth, band instrumentation, so it's live band. Forward to the floor. Arpeggios. What's in here as well? Aha. Major keys, which is also actually in here. Vocals, samples. Yeah, so the production doesn't mean anything. It's like what exactly about the production? It's saying the music makes it sound like the music. Yeah, punchy compression. See, like, is it though? But yes, it's different. It's very different, but it's the same. It still sounds like Daft Punk, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not house music, but it's still Daft Punk. How is this? How is it possible? Yeah. How is it possible? Okay, so let's just take a look at this. So in homework, okay, they didn't have a live band. Yeah, but they used certain things. Yeah, so they used filtered disco loops. Yeah, but over here, they used a live band doing disco. Yeah. They still use a lot of the same synths. They all have, there's a lot of vocoder in both. The particular, they use arpeggios in both. The way they use filters are in both. Obviously, there's full songs in this one. I didn't like that. So full songs. There isn't in this. Yeah. They use a lot of the same kind of production techniques. There's punchy compression in both. There are repeating samples in both. But this is a live band and this isn't a live band. Yeah. So while it sounds extremely different, it still sounds like Daft Punk. This is more on the dance floor. This is more kind of pop. Yeah. I mean, this is more actual kind of disco, whereas this is more disco influence, but it still sounds like Daft Punk. If you listen to the chords that they use throughout their career, they're the same progressions over and over again. Yeah. What about the notes? That's what I'm saying, Mikhail. Yeah. The kind of melodies that they use. No one said that. Yeah. The sort of melodies that they use are the same. Yeah. So while you hear it and you go, oh, it sounds so different, but it still sounds like Daft Punk. And bear in mind, these two albums had a span of 17 years between them. 17 years. Okay. And when I first listened to Random Access Memories, was like, what is this? This is like I said, this isn't Daft Punk, but it does still sound like Daft Punk because I was used to Daft Punk using samples and more of the kind of electronic, classic electronic stuff. But when I listened to it a few times and I realized, I was like, actually, this is absolutely brilliant. I mean, to me, this, besides like how big they got and the live gigs and everything, this is their crowning achievement, is that they identified certain elements that they were going to use over and over again. Yeah. And the combination of elements that they used, and that they kept actually meant that they could make anything from techno and house and, that kind of thing on one end to poppy disco on the other and still sound like them. In other words, they made a genre of one, and this is why they called themselves Daft Punk. We make Daft Punk. That was the reason for the name. They said, what do you call your music? Oh, I don't know, Daft Punk. Yeah. So they made a genre of one, their own unique style, by choosing certain elements and keeping them consistent throughout their career. Yeah. So that meant they could make techno, they could make house, they could make disco. I mean, they never made drum and bass as far as I know, but I bet you they could have made drum and bass and it would still sound like Daft Punk. And there are certain artists who do this. I remember when, who was it now? Oh yeah, Burial made a house track. I think it was on one side it was Fortet and on the other side was Burial. Burial made a house track and it literally sounded like Burial making a house track. Right? And this is what I mean by unique music. It's not generic in that it doesn't have to be in a genre because they're in a genre of one. They can make a music in any genre and it still sounds like them. Okay? Because what we view as being a category, what we view as a genre is essentially a category. And that category is made up of a number of different elements. Okay? And those elements can be chosen by past categories. You can say, well, I make house music, and house music is made up of these elements. Yeah? Or you are free to choose your own elements and carry them through. Yeah? So it depends on whether you want to make music which has been decided, the elements of which has been decided by someone else or a bunch of other people by history, or you want to make music using elements which you decide on. And you say, right, this is going to make up my style. I mean, when I'm doing Zentor, and understand when I'm talking about the music that I'm making right now, it's taking me a long time to get to the point where I am right now. And so I'm not, I struggled with this for years, literally. Okay. So it's one of the reasons I stopped making music. Yeah. So when you listen to the Zentor, hour-long piece of music, there's kind of drum and bassy stuff, there's electro-y stuff, there's housey stuff, there's ambient stuff. It's like, but none of it really is. I mean, is in it's kind of techno. There's trance, there's prog. It's just all kinds of stuff. But it all still sounds like Zentor. Why? Because I have chosen specific elements, specific instrumentation, specific types of things that I'm playing on that instrumentation. And also I've said no to a lot of things, certain types of effects, the way I'm making the music, particular lines, particular harmonies. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter what tempo I'm going. It doesn't matter none of that matters because it still sounds like Zentor. Yeah. So is this making sense? Yeah. So, would you like to create your own unique music? Because if so, that's what we're going to do is the style splurge. Okay, and I'm going to do a demo of a quick style splurge for you in a second. But before that, just reminding you that the next session, same time, 20th/21st of April, the so secret the world tells you it's wrong method, which literally every successful artist I know uses to discover where the biggest breakthroughs are in your music making, and how ignoring most people and offering your own thoughts to double down on your splurge practice will deliver results your friends will shake their heads in wonder at. Yeah. So, oh yeah, and don't forget, Zentor, the after party, the link is in the description. Okay, so let's move over to my music. By the way, are there any questions about this whole unique music thing? Does anybody have any questions about that? So Leo says, I like to believe I already do have a unique style. So, you may well, I don't know because I've not heard your music, Leo. One of the things that I would recommend you just take forward is just assuming you don't. Yeah. Because often I've heard people say this, and not because, look, Leo, I'm not actually, I don't know. I can't know this. Maybe you already do. It may well be the case. But one of the things that I've noticed is that often people will go, yeah, but I already think I have a unique style, and say, okay, let me listen to people I'm coaching. And I go, okay, let me listen to the music. And I have to find a way of breaking it to them that they actually don't. Right? It's quite a high bar. Because often people will go, well, I made it, so therefore it's unique. Yeah, or, this snare drum, the way I've used the snare drum is, I'm not saying you do this, by the way, Leo, but the way I've used the snare drum is not quite the same as someone else. One of the problems with it is that the more that you focus on a particular genre, the more that it's like finely and granularly you perceive the differences. Yeah, quite often people will say, well, all of the music I make, it's all so different, it's all over the place. And then I'll hear the various different pieces of music they've made, and I'm like, no, it all sounds like the same. Yeah. So, yeah, just to avoid that problem, just assume that you don't. So while I'm talking about Zentor as being unique and it sounding like itself, I am assuming that it's not there yet. It can always be. I can differentiate it from other things much more. Yeah. I'm thinking about the distance I have to go rather than just assuming I'm already there. Yeah. So do we have some questions, Luke, before I start talking about the demoing the style splurge?
When did you know how many elements you had to choose to feel comfortable with proceeding?
Well, who can you tell me who said that?
Oh, yeah, DJ Drew, D-R-U-E.
Well, what we're going to do is we're just going to start with a couple, yeah? I mean, you don't need, for one thing, you don't need to feel comfortable with proceeding. You just need to proceed. Yeah, comfort's the enemy, actually. Okay, so you don't need to feel comfortable about it. Just start, and we're going to start with just a couple in the style splurge. Okay. AL, how do you know if your music is unique? Well, because, okay, if you can write a piece of music when I say in any genre, it's like, so if I can write music, for instance, because I'm in electronic, so it's like in the electronic sort of dance space, there's a lot of obsession with tempo. Yeah, so if I can write music, if I can play a set which goes from 156 BPM down to 70 BPM, and it still sound like Zentor, then that is pointing to the fact that it may well be starting to sound unique. Yeah. If you can make music in any genre and it still sound like you, right? Still like very clearly sound like you, then it's likely to be approaching unique. If So you can play your piece of, a piece of any music of yours to someone, and they go, "Oh, immediately that's you." Yeah, without you telling them it's you, then it's likely to start to get to be unique. There's kind of two elements to it. There's it not sounding exactly like anything else, but also it sounding the same as itself, and also it being able, I mean, this is the difficult thing about it, it being able to sound different but the same, like Daft Punk did. Yeah, it's still Daft Punk, but it's Daft Punk doing this. Right? And I think the mistake that people make is that, but there's a number of mistakes. They think that unique music has to be weird. That's not it at all. Daft Punk, I mean, some of Daft Punk's music's weird, but that Random Access Memories isn't at all. It's very commercial. Yeah, that's number one. Number two, thinking that unique music it's almost like it doesn't sound like anything else at all. Now, it can actually be in a genre, but be separate from that genre because it's more Daft Punk than it is disco, or more Zentor than it is drum and bass. Yeah. So it doesn't have to sort of sound like music from Mars. Yeah. And the other thing is that unique music, it has to be the same as itself, because really any category is made up of a number of different elements. Yeah. So Luke, what's a table? How would you describe a table?
It's a thing that you can place things on that exists with typically 4 legs.
Okay.
But it doesn't have to. It can have 3 or even 1.
I've got 3 tables in here, and 2 of them don't have 4 legs. Yeah.
Yep.
And I know that there's a table through there and there's nothing on it. Yeah. So, like, it's really interesting. I mean, a really hard one is actually what's a game? Because when you try and define what a game is, it's almost impossible. Yeah, that's because any category is made up of a number of different elements. Yeah, so a genre is simply a category and there are items in that category that have more of those elements that bring it closer to the center of the bullseye of that category. That's like an archetype. So there are archetypal tables which will have 4 legs. Yeah. Because that's what most people say when it's a table. It's like, it's got 4 legs. Not all of them. Yeah. So an archetypal table will probably have 4 legs. Yeah. Maybe in the future, when less tables have 4 legs, that won't be the case. Yeah. An archetypal table won't have any legs because it'll be floating with some kind of magnetic thing or something. I don't know. But at this point, the archetypal table will have 4 legs. Similarly, an archetypal piece of house music will display more of the elements of that category that bring it closer to the center of that thing. So all I'm asking you to do to start the process of at the moment in your splurging is start to identify your own elements. Yeah, some of which can be from other genres. Yeah, but the way you put them together, and then you go, okay, so instead of my core elements being the ones that are from house music, or the ones that are from drum and bass, or the ones that are from a particular kind of folk music, or the ones that are from death metal, yeah, you can use some of those elements and add other elements to them, and then this becomes, because, if you notice from Daft Punk, none of their elements were from Mars. They were all elements that were very familiar at that point, but they just put them together in a particular way. Yeah, and they chose particular chord progressions and they chose particular production techniques. Yeah, which set them apart. I mean, when they landed in the early 90s, it was literally like, what on earth is this? I've never heard anything like it before. But it also sounded the same. I was playing it in clubs. Yeah, but it was different. The same but different. But the same within itself, but it was also different within itself. This is because they kind of fundamentally understood how categories work. So you want to choose your elements and put them together so that it starts to sound like a genre of one. Okay.
Let's see. Jacinta says, don't you discover what your style has been by listening back to the splurges after the challenge and see what elements keep cropping up?
That's a good, very good question, Jacinta. Yeah, I mean, you can. It's not so much discovering what your style, what your style has been. It's like what your style could be. Yeah, because you don't only have to go along with whatever comes out. You can also be intentional about this, as we'll discover in the style splurge. Yeah. So you're actually kind of creating a direction for yourself. Yeah. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'm going to go back to the... Hang on a minute, that's not the right one, is it? Let me find my mind map, so we'll go through the rules. So hang on. Open recent. All right. So first of all, from the music that you love, music from your past... Hang on a minute, that's not right. 2 secs. There we go. You need to choose 2 musical elements from the music you love from your past, yeah? But not from the music you're making now, yeah? So some examples of musical elements, and I'll just go through my own, would be, so obviously the bass is an element, but how what you're actually doing with the bass. So the example I'm going to use today is what I would call, well, not what I would call, what is called Alberti bass. Okay, so Alberti bass comes from, well, I used to play a lot of, still do actually, used to play a lot of Mozart on the piano. And he wasn't the only person that used this particular bass figure, but it was from a particular era, and he used it a lot, right? So, so that's what's called an Alberti bass, okay? Yeah. So it's not just a sound. It's what you play. The kind of things that you're playing on that sound. Yeah. So choose your own from music from your history. It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, it doesn't even have to be music that you love. It's just music that's something that's been important in your life or big in your life. Yeah. Another example I'm going to use is like bleepy modular synth sequences. Yeah. So I'm talking about this kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, that's got a sound to it, right? But you can choose your own. It doesn't have to be bass. It doesn't have to be beats. You could choose a particular type of melody, a particular kind of harmony. I mean, I'm always using this kind of thing in my music. When people say I just keep on doing the same things, well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you could actually double down on it. So yeah, I often do stuff in a major key. And I specifically do that because most of the kind of music that is made in electronic sort of, club music is in a minor key. Yeah, so I'm specifically choosing to write in major keys. Yeah. Instrumentation is something else that you could choose. Yes, because putting together different instruments which aren't usually heard together. Do you remember, Luke, this was a while back now, when I played it, there was this banging techno groove that I got out, and then I was playing this kind of really pretty piano over the top. And both you and Arash, your first reaction was, well, particularly Arash actually said, this doesn't work. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just sent it to you and I said, what do you think of this? And I didn't say anything about it. I just said, what do you think of this? And I said, my first reaction was it doesn't work. But then, because it was quite long, because it was just like a jam thing. And then by the end, it was like, actually, it does kind of work, right? Because a lot of what you think works is about familiarity. Yeah, just getting used to it. Yeah. So that was what I was expecting would happen, that one or both of you would say, this doesn't work, but then actually it does by the end. I was like, well, there's a good sign. Because I put together these two things, this kind of pretty piano with this banging sort of techno thing underneath, that it's like, it's in its own area. So instrumentation, yeah. And of course, sound design. I mean, these aren't the only things that you could do. You know, how you actually, you know, the kind of sounds that you use. It's slightly different to instrumentation. So, you know, for me, I decided on, where are we? This kind of, you know. Now, what's important when you're deciding on these things is that they want to be relevant to your past, to your musical history. Yeah, and ideally, not all of them want to be from the genre of music you're making now. I mean, this one, for me, kind of is. Yeah, but remember, I'm putting it together with other things that kind of aren't. I mean, maybe Vangelis, you could say that is. Yeah, but then I'm also doing the piano. Yeah. Okay. And then create a new 5 players template, which includes the 2 musical elements. Yeah. And you can use any of your previous templates as the starting point. Okay. So when you're splurging, use 2 extra style splurge rules. I must start with one of my chosen musical elements, one of these ones. Okay. So for instance, bleepy modular synth sequences or Alberti bass. Yeah, and I'll play you what I've been doing soon. And another example is I must use the other musical elements I didn't start with in every splurge. So for instance, Vangelis, Blade Runner, Soaring Synth Lines, or the Alberti bass if you didn't use it. Yeah. And you do not need to keep up the preset rule from the preset splurge, but bear it in mind. Yeah, the belief that we've built with that is I can use anything. I can use anything. Yeah. And of course, just like the last one, for 5 minutes when your splurge is over, visually arrange the parts if you're using a DAW. Record yourself playing the parts if you're not using a DAW, in the order you put them in, with a couple of other combinations. Yeah, so you're visually doing that without listening. Okay. No need to listen and no need to get a good take. So Band Reject says, what if your template is restricted to the hardware you have available to you? Well, that's true of everyone. So that in that case, the instrumentation won't be one of the things that you are that is defining your style. It's what you do with it. So there's no problem there. And of course, the other rules will still apply. 0 focus on quality. Remember, the creator versus the editor. We're focused on the creator because you can't move forward by pushing the brake and accelerator at the same time. 100% focused on quantity and speed. I'm shortening it, so 20 minutes max. Yeah. Guideline, depending on what tools you're using, what genre of music you're making in your practice level. And the only exception to that is if you're in the flow and there's no resistance. Again, export the audio, save the project files, and do not listen until day 11 of your challenge. Okay? So, in order to not make this too long, what I have done is I have actually made a starting point, because I don't want, faffing about with it. I've made a starting point, so just so I can get the point across clearly. So when I talked about Alberti bass, what I've actually done is I put the Alberti bass on the subharmonicon. Okay, so here you can hear it. Yeah. What's going on there? Oh, there. Okay. And obviously I've already played you that. Why is that not strange? Anyway, never mind. So what I'm going to do, because I've got that up already, so I'm starting with the Alberti bass and I've got my Bleepy modular beats as well. So I'm just going to record this in. So I'm not going to do any of the arranging. Again, I've gone back to the template where the DAW is just functioning as a tape machine. Okay, so there's no it's not synced or anything. So I'm just using the DAW as a tape machine. Yeah. The last Splurge, I actually was using the DAW as a DAW, but I'm not now. So I'm going to have to record the modular things in. Okay, the hardware in. Also, Luke, if there are any questions that anybody has while I'm doing this, then just let me know. Okay. Here we go. Let's do that. Let's do that. And let's do that as well. Okay. Oh, I forgot to press record. Schoolboy error. Here we go. Yes, that's right. You need to figure out I think it's 2 actually. And add them to the band. I mean, I'm doing it with all of my elements now, so. But yeah, you only need 2. All right, there we go. I was enjoying that, got into that. so all right. So there you can see Alberti bass with the modular rhythm. So now I'm going to do the piano parts using, I'm going to do a piano part, and then I'm going to do the Vangelis string part, okay? And I'm going to focus on the Alberti bass again, okay? Yes, exactly. It sounds like Zentor. And what I'll probably do actually in the performance afterwards on the Zentor channel, the Mike Mundaley channel, I'll probably start with this, just as a bit of fun. Okay, see what happens. Okay. What's going on? Oh, yeah. And I'm just going to record because I basically know what the key is. Here's one I made earlier. Again, you heard me go out of time in the left hand. I'm not worrying about it, it's just a splurge. Okay, I'm going to leave the piano part there because I might like to hear just these things on their own. Yeah, so really, I'm following my own instruction live. Yeah, I've practiced this a lot, so I know what I'm doing. So I can do it without having to actually arrange it. All right, so final part, the Vangelis strings. So can you hear how this sounds like itself? Yeah, I mean, it's got elements of other things. Yeah, so it's got elements of Mozart. It's got elements of sort of modular jams. It's got elements of, so it sounds a bit classical, but it also doesn't. Yeah. Now it will have an element of, one of my favorite films of all time, Blade Runner, with and Vangelis. So it's sort of, and it also sounds a little bit like filmy as well. Yeah. But it doesn't sound like any of those things at the same time because I'm putting together these elements. Yeah, which haven't been put. Well, I mean, they may well have been put together before, but yeah, I'm not saying that this is completely original because nothing is original. Yeah, so this is the final part. I'm not pressing record. So I'll just start from here. Oops. Okay, that'll do. Actually, maybe I'll just put a bit of thing on because I might want to hear the. Okay. Okay, so we have a question here. The main problem I have all the time with splurges is my lack of musicianship. I simply can't jam like this, plain and simple. I like the splurges, they help me getting a lot of stuff done. So, Luke, can you address that particular problem? Oh, Luke, I can't hear you.
His main problem, he has a lack of musicianship. So how would you, well, one, do you want to develop musicianship? If so, the best way to do that would be to practice, which would come from splurging, which anything you start off with, you're going to lack. So the way to do that is to experiment and explore. And two, if you're not worrying about quality, then a lack of musicianship should not impact you. And the ability to splurge.
Yeah, splurging isn't playing. You can splurge by drawing things in. Yeah, watch Deadmau5 his masterclass. Yeah, like he doesn't play anything in, and he's definitely splurges. You can see him splurging right there and then. So yeah, that is a. You know, when you see somebody who spent, most of their life playing instruments and you go, well, I can't do that. So, well, I couldn't do that at some point. I couldn't do that at some point. I mean, I see someone like Keith Jarrett playing the piano and I say, I can't do that. But what that means is that I'm not going to be Keith Jarrett. I'm not going to make music like him. That doesn't mean I can't make great music. Yeah. Because I don't have the skills of Keith Jarrett because I've not had his particular path. I've not had his particular journey. So what? That just means that I can be inspired by him. I can take certain elements of what he does, like the kind of chord structures and things, and then play them in a different way. Similarly, you've seen me play things. Yeah, but I'm just using what I can do and not using, I am developing those abilities and I'm moving forward with them, but I'm not obsessed about what I can't do. I'm focusing on what I can do. That was the point of the strength splurge. Yeah, so don't use that as an excuse. Because it's not. How do you get better? How do you develop musicianship? By practicing. Yeah, absolutely, Frankie. Timberland is a splurger. Watch the start of his masterclass. It's literally splurging right there. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Yes, so that's no, it's not. Splurging is not playing things in. Splurging is how you approach what it is that you are doing. You can splurge while mixing. You can splurge while sound designing. You can splurge while arranging. You can splurge while doing anything. Yeah, you're missing the point if you think that splurging is about playing. It's not. It's not improvising. Improvising is a form of splurging. I mean, yeah. Okay, I don't think we have any other questions. So, Luke, just before we finish, I've explained in a lot through my own words what I mean by unique music and how I kind of try and explain it in terms of categories and everything. Do you have a different way of explaining it to people so they can understand? Because we've obviously talked about it a lot. I've coached you a lot around it as well over the years. So you get it on a sort of fundamental level too, and it just be, I think, helpful so that people could understand, really get what I'm talking about, where unique music comes from and what it is, and what's different about it than the majority of music that most people make, which is very generic.
Well, I think everybody has things that they particularly are intrigued by or like, that make up their own sort of musical box, if you will. The things that have impacted them at different times throughout their lives. And two people could have the same artist and the same songs and come up with a totally different interpretation of each of those things. One person could like the particular harmonies of a certain artist, while another person likes the lyrics. And I think this collection of things that if you look back through your life, the songs that really impacted you and the things about those songs are kind of like your palette of things you can choose from to make something that is uniquely you. And I think the more you can stay in touch with those particular things through remembering and thinking back and making playlists of the songs that really had an impact on you, and then asking yourself, what do I like about these things? That's how you get the ingredients to make a unique style. And just using your own musical tastes as the thing that guides you versus using strictly the market or the things that other people are finding popular or the thing that you think will sell or the things that you think are good. Trusting that your own musical taste is the thing, and your own sort of bag of tricks, your box of things that you love, can be the thing that comprises your unique style. And only you know that, only you have access to it. And like we said earlier in this challenge, most people won't like the music you make. And a lot of people go out trying to make music that most people will like, but that music doesn't exist. So if you can trust that other people out there have been drawn to the same things, have been connected to the same things, and you can combine those things in a way that only you can because only you have been touched by them in the way you were, then that's how you can get to a unique style. And if you look at it through categories, you just pull the different categories out and come together, and there you have it.
Yeah, exactly. I think the problem people have is that they think of the category as the whole thing. So it's almost like I'm going to get inspired by, I don't know, X producer, this producer or this musician who is writing house music. So then they use all of the things in that category to make their music. Just choose one or two from this and one or two from that and start experimenting with putting these, be more granular about the actual elements. Yeah, because any given genre is made up of multiple different individual elements that you can use in your own configuration. Yeah. So Tina says, isn't that like the strength splurge? No, because the actual way that you're choosing is different. So the style splurge is about developing your own style, which means that you can choose things from things that, other pieces of music that you like. The strength splurge You may well like, I don't know, let's say you may well like massive film scores with really complicated melody, but you may not have the ability to do that. So you wouldn't choose that in the strength splurge. Whereas you could choose certain elements of those massive film scores in this one. So it's like it in that it's splurging in that you are choosing things, yes. But the way that you are choosing them, no, it's not the same. Would you say it's okay to use loops of instruments that we don't have access to for a splurge like this? Yes, absolutely. No problem at all. Would be curious to see some splurge methods for lyrics. Any tips? Well, yeah. I mean, I'm actually splurging lyrics at the moment. So basically, just get open a notepad and just write without any. Yeah, I mean, free writing that we did in an earlier live stream. That's splurging, but you could do it for lyrics too. Yeah, that would be splurging. Listen to a splurge that you've done, and then while you're listening to it, just write anything without editing. There you go. There's an initial process for lyric writing. I'm actually making a automatic song machine, which is about writing lyrics as well. Okay. There was a question up here from Jeff Roy, which was how do you arrange now? It's following the instructions, basically just visually arrange the stuff. But basically I just did that in the, if you're talking about what I did, hang on, someone. I just automatically arranged it sort of as I was going along. Yeah, so that's done now. I'm going to export that. Yeah. Okay. There we go. I think that's it for now. I'm going to go and prepare for my Zentor performance. Luckily, I already have a starting point, so I'm going to start from that and see where it takes me. So the link for that is in the description. I hope this has been useful. Enjoy yourself. Push the boat out. Try some different things. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. This is a wonderful thing about splurging, is that we are allowing ourselves to try lots of different things in order to, because really, when you're trying to make, because similarity is one of the reasons that we like things, or familiarity is the reason that we like certain music. I think we often think that something doesn't work because we're not familiar with it. And if you remove the quality judgment from this initial phase, it doesn't matter that you don't like it. Yeah, you're giving that thing you're not familiar with a chance for you to see whether you do actually want to use it. Yeah. And so without splurging, I never reached the goal that I am approaching now. Yeah. So just be okay with it sounding weird and rubbish. Yeah. And that's how you will develop your own unique style, which, as I said, is something that we all have to do. So until next time, 2 days from now, onwards and upwards.